Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Scott Early. I work at the Florida Department of Education in Tallahassee. One of my jobs is to work with the McKay Scholarship, so that's what I'll be talking about this morning. We're going to be videoed, so the information will be available on the Family Cafe website at some point. I don't have any handouts for you. I do have a booth in the exhibit hall that there's some pamphlets there with some basic information. We do have a website here, floridaschoolchoice.org, that you can find pretty much everything that I'm going to talk about. It may not be very easy to find in some cases, but it's all there. I also have some business cards here on the table that have my contact information. You're welcome to contact me anytime you want to. We have 35 slides to go through this morning. It's been my experience that we don't get through them all, and that's okay. No big deal. If you have questions, ask. I will be glad to stop in the middle and answer your question, no problem. Go ahead, Matt. He's going to close the door for sound effects there. Any questions before I start? Okay, sounds good. I'm sure there'll be some more people coming in. All right, so I work in what's called the School Choice Office, and we handle all of these different types of programs and some others, but the one I'm going to talk about today is this McKay Scholarship for Students with Disabilities. McKay Scholarship has been around for 15 years now, 14 years. So we've even had a lot of students that have graduated. They started when they were young, they started when they were elementary school, they stayed, and they graduated. So that's worked out well for them. We'll talk about some eligibility, we'll talk about responsibilities, and tips and questions at the end. Started in 2000. If you want to read some legal information, there's the statute number. Legalese can be confusing sometimes. Generally, we help kindergarten through 12th grade. This is not a scholarship for college. It's only kindergarten through 12th grade, which is either graduation or you age out at 22, so it can go either way. All right, how is it funded? Where does the money come from? Well, the state develops an education budget every year, and they send a certain amount of money to your districts for your public school students. If a parent so chooses and their child qualifies, we can take some of that money, instead of sending it to the district, we send it to the private school. That's your choice that you want to use for McKay. So that's where the money comes from. And I go through that to say that there's no limit on it. There's not a cap. There's not a maximum number of people. If you qualify, you qualify, so that you don't have to worry about meeting, being first come, first serve or anything like that. So that's good. A lot of people ask, because a lot of scholarships, most scholarships, I think, there is a cap on it. Now, how much you receive depends on three things. One, it mainly depends on the level of disability of your child. The district, after you apply, will come up with what they call a matrix. The matrix will be anywhere from 251 to 255, and that'll represent an amount of money. The two other things that affect the amount of the funding are the child's age. Unfortunately, the scholarship money goes down the older you get. And then the last thing that affects the funding is what county you apply in. It's based on cost of living a little bit. As an example, this says the average amount. That doesn't really help you that much. Most students apply and qualify for a 251 matrix, so that's the lowest level. Hello, come in, have a seat.
Excuse me.
The general funding for that is probably $5,500 or something like that. If you're up on the higher spectrum, children with Asperger's, autism, it can be $20,000, $22,000 a year. So there's the range there that you're thinking about. And we don't know next year's funding yet, but it's set every year by the state legislature. And of course, they're meeting again now, right? Because they didn't finish in time. So they're still working on the budget for next year. But usually in July will be when we get next year's funding amounts. And those get posted on the website. Here's a little diagram for you. This total at the top, 28,000. That's how many McKay students we had last year, not the current school year, but last year. So these figures are a year behind. So that's across the state. It's a statewide program. If you apply and qualify in one county, you can move and go to another county. There's no problem crossing county lines or anything like that, because we have a lot of people that move around. There's the number of students. You can see most of them are middle school. It's a little harder, so to speak, to get in as a kindergartner. I think that's why those numbers are pretty low. All right, basic eligibility. These are the 4 main requirements to qualify for a McKay Scholarship. You be currently enrolled in public school in Florida, of course, but we do have people that move. My area is Jacksonville to Pensacola, so I occasionally come across somebody that lives like in South Georgia or South Alabama that wants to get on McKay, but they don't qualify if they're not in Florida public school. They have an IEP or 504 accommodation plan. Now the funding I was talking about earlier is for children with IEPs. A 504 funding is maybe $4,500, so it's less.
What's the difference between IEPs?
An IEP is the individual education plan that students receive if they have disabilities. You're familiar with that?
Yes.
A 504 accommodation plan is for students with less severe needs. You will find students that have diabetes can get an IEP sometimes, asthma, sometimes dyslexia. That can go either way, but it's those types of services that they need.
Thank you.
The third requirement is that they be counted as a Florida public school student a year before the scholarship year. So for example, we got next school year. They have to qualify and be counted as a public school student for this current school year. They had to have been counted in October when they did the attendance survey and February when they did the attendance survey. Still be in public school, apply, and see if they can qualify for McKay for next year. So you kind of have to earn eligibility, so to speak, by meeting that public school requirement the year prior that you're applying for. Yes, ma'am.
My son for one semester was in the virtual school.
Okay.
So he was considered a public school
Yes.
student.
Yes.
Second semester we pulled him out of his home school.
Right.
He's still registered with our district, our school district. How does that work? Is he not eligible or?
No, homeschool students cannot earn eligibility.
Okay.
There's nobody's receiving the state funding for them. Florida Virtual School receives state funding, so it's considered its own district, just like a public school would be, so you can qualify.
So if he's
Going
attending
that route?
classes through Florida Virtual School, can he qualify then?
If he's doing it as a public school student. If he's doing it as a homeschool student, no.
So you had to be a public school. I had to have applied. My daughter's got a 504. My son has an IEP. I had to have applied when she was in public school.
For
Now
the
we
next.
but we already put her in private because of public school.
Right.
But it's too late now for her to.
Correct.
Right.
You would have to go back to public school for a year, do Florida Virtual School for a year,
Okay.
something that would enroll her in Florida public
Okay.
school.
Thank you.
There are other scholarship programs that I'm not going to talk about, but that don't require the public school.
Okay. That I could look on the website.
Yes, ma'am. You can go to the floridaschoolchoice.org website,
Right.
and all the programs are listed there. McKay's the only one that requires the year prior.
Right.
So- Did you? Yes.
Yes, I want to ask because she's right now in a charter school, so.
Okay,
does
that's
it
a public
affect-
school.
Yeah.
Yeah, charter schools are public schools.
Okay.
As long as they're reporting her.
Yes, exactly.
Sometimes we have trouble with charter schools that they don't report the children on time,
Yeah.
but that can be fixed eventually. Yes, ma'am.
Can you say why it was hard to start as a kindergartner with the McKay Scholarship? You had said that that's harder to do. Can you elaborate on
Well,
why?
it's harder because a lot of parents don't start enough ahead of time
Oh, okay.
and earn the requirements. Maybe they put their child in some VPK services and were counted for half of a school year and didn't do the full school year before their kindergarten year. Sometimes they don't have the IEP yet.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that's what I was meaning when I said harder.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
When a kid is in a private school but contracted through the Department of Education, does that count as a year prior to he gets IEP from?
Yeah, that's
Department of
probably
Education?
not gonna count. Districts receive federal money to provide those services to private school students. And that's probably what is happening in that case. But if they are enrolled in the private school, then they're not meeting this public school requirement, even though they may be receiving services. Hello.
Hi, sorry.
Oh, that is fine. Hello. All right. And then the last requirement is you have to be 5 by September 1st. I talked to somebody the other day, September 2nd.
No.
Gotta wait another year, I know. And then it's difficult for these parents that, they don't want to wait another year, right? It's heartbreaking. Yes, ma'am.
That's September 1st of the year for the year that you're applying, not for
Correct.
the previous.
That's correct. That's right.
The year that you're applying. So the year you're going to use the scholarship.
People are applying, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
People are applying now for next school year.
Right.
And they can
okay.
apply now as long as their child is going to be 5 by September 1st.
Okay.
The system won't even let you apply if your birth date is not sufficient.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Question, I've applied in the past for my son for the McKay Scholarship and got approved, but was not able to find a school for him to go to.
I've got a slide for that.
Do I have to reapply again
Yes, ma'am.
every single school year? Or
As long as he remains in public school, you have to reapply.
Okay.
So we'll take pictures of it.
Okay. And it's being videoed, so it'll be on the Family Cafe website
Oh, it is.
as
Okay.
well. You can go to our website and find information,
Okay.
however you want to do it. Okay, what's next? Okay, these are the two exceptions to the requirements that I just talked about. One is if you're a military family that has been ordered, thank you. If you've been ordered to Florida, then we don't require your child to spend a year in Florida public school before you can qualify. So there's some leeway for military families that are ordered here. And also, regarding the kindergarten issue from earlier, students that are taking VPK money have two options. They can do the traditional VPK route and be counted as a public school student, receive the services, and then qualify for the next year. Or they can do what's called SIS, Specialized Instructional Services. This is something that you would choose through your local early learning coalition. My tongue always gets tied up when I try to say that. Early Learning Coalition. And it's just an alternate way that you can qualify for McKay. But that's, of course, that's only for the 4-year-olds. Okay. These are some things that the districts are supposed to do. Every April 1st, any child that has an IEP, 504 plan, I know, I see people shaking their head. I hear the stories. I'm just telling you what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to notify everybody. Now, how they notify everybody is up to them. Sometimes it's a sentence on the bottom of a piece of paper that they give you and you never read. Sometimes they send out a postcard. Sometimes it's a robocall. But they're supposed to notify you. They're also supposed to notify you as soon as you get an IEP. I talk to a lot of parents and they say, I heard about your program from the IEP meeting that we just had. Hey, that's great. That's what we want to hear. And we do have a hotline. That's a phone number there that you can call us as a parent. All right, here's to your question over there. We have a lot of people apply, right? 35,000 about apply every year. Most of those are approved, but you see how few actually follow through. Now, there's several reasons for that. One, well, there may not be a private school in your area that can serve your child. Two, most of the time, scholarship's not going to pay for everything, and so you've got to come up with some funds. Or three, who knows? You may just decide, I'll just rather stay in public school. Because they find out some things about the private school they don't like, or they just wanted to apply, see what would happen, those kinds of things. So there's a lot of people who apply, but very few actually use it. All right, so this is the website you go to if you want to apply. There are different deadlines throughout the year. McKay sends 4 payments to the private schools, so we have 4 deadlines that you have to meet in order to be eligible. Each payment has what's called a application deadline and an enrollment deadline. Now, the first one for next year is July 3rd. So everybody that files their intent online by July 3rd has met the intent filing deadline. They've met the application deadline for the whole year, so that's good. But then the next step is you have to be enrolled, right? You got to get enrolled in a private school. The school has to do that. It's not something the parent goes on the website and chooses. It's something the school actually does. They have to do that by August 2nd. So that's the first deadline, just to get the first payment. And there are others throughout the year.
And all private schools receive McKay scholarships?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. There's probably 1,700 private schools in Florida that are approved for McKay. And maybe twice that many private schools total.
And that list is also on the website?
Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am. You can go to floridaschoolchoice.org. On the top right-hand side, there's a little drop-down box for the directory, and it'll let you choose by county to help you sort the list if you want to. When it brings up the directory, it'll have website if they've got it, contact information, what grades they serve, military yes or no, religious yes or no, co-ed yes or no, and then a whole list of all of the disabilities that they serve. Now, all of that information has been entered by the private school. We don't verify that, but it's something that you can contact them and kind of see if that would help you out. I think a lot of parents either have a school in their neighborhood that they're familiar with, or that they have friends that go there. That's where they find out. Yes, ma'am.
My grandson is 5.
Okay.
Well, won't be 5 till October, and I have already applied for the McKay Scholarship
Mm-hmm.
to put him in a private school.
Mm-hmm.
Will he be able to get it when he turns 5, or will he have to wait a whole other year?
Right. That's the unfortunate thing. You have to wait for the next year. Mm-hmm. Yep.
He can't get it in October. Start getting it in October.
That's correct. Right. Starting next February is when you can apply for the next year. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about what standards are the private schools held to teach?
We'll come to that in a little bit.
Come to that? Okay.
But if I don't cover it, make sure you ask me again.
Okay.
What's next? All right, so when you go to our website and you try to apply, this is the link that you would come to. Pretty basic stuff. This is what the screen looks like. So you're going to be choosing the district, enter the child's name, date of birth, and whether they have a 504 or an IEP. And then this is what happens. If you enter your email address, then we'll update you. We'll send you email information. You'll be given a confirmation number. We will also mail you some information and a helpful pamphlet. But all the information is on the website as well, but it's easier to see when it's in pamphlet form, right, than trying to scroll through the website. So that's what you'll get from us. The Department of Education does not determine whether or not your child is eligible. Your local district does that. So we give them 30 days to do it. Most of the time they do it within 30 days. If not, then we start bugging them. But most of the time they do it within 30 days. Again, if you've entered your email, you'll get an email notification, hey, something changed on your child's status. Go look it up. So you've got your confirmation number, you go to the website, and you look up the information. All right, so if you're approved, now what? Well, you have a lot of options. You can do nothing, and apparently a lot of people do, right? You remember that previous chart? 25,000 people don't utilize it. You can stay in your current public school and just do nothing. You can try to choose a different public school if you want to. If you do that, you got to contact your local district, and they can help you with placement. Our office only works with the private school side of it. So if you want to try to choose a different public school, you have to go through your local district. They may be able to provide transportation. In a lot of cases they do. And you remain eligible till graduation. Now, if you want to do the private school option, you don't have to apply every year. I get questions year round. Do I need to apply again for next year? Do I need to apply again for next year? No. Once you're in, unless you become ineligible. It can continue until graduation, or age 22. You can finish out the year that your child turns 22 if they still haven't earned their diploma. And pretty much the only way to lose your McKay eligibility is to return to public school enrollment. Unfortunately, that also means if your child takes driver's ed during the summer through the public school, through the district, you would lose your McKay. That happens every year, unfortunately. You can take it through Florida Virtual School. That does not cost you the eligibility, but it does, anytime you take Florida Virtual School classes, it does reduce the amount of your McKay. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, I was wondering, what about Title I tutoring, like the tutoring that public school does in
Mhm.
school?
That's federal funds.
Okay. so
That does
that's
not
fine.
affect McKay eligibility.
Okay, I was told it didn't affect it, so I just wanted to make sure.
Yep. All districts have funds from the government they can use
Okay.
for private school students with disabilities.
Okay.
They use them in a variety of ways, and that varies by district. But they do have some funds to use. Yes, ma'am.
I had a couple questions. I actually, this was my first year applying for McKay for my son for high school, and I went the public option because I wanted him to go to a different public school.
Okay.
Well, in the district, unfortunately, because there's so many kids with IEPs, I didn't get into the school.
They said no?
Yeah, I didn't get into the school, and I was the very first person on the list. But it was because they had already had like 235 ninth graders coming in with IEPs.
Oh, I see. They didn't have room for.
But the whole district, when I went and checked to see about changing or what other schools were available in the whole county,
Right.
there was one high school
Right.
still available.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like really bad for if you choose to go to the public school option. But you're saying, a couple questions.
You do not have to reapply if you're going to stay in the public school option. But you do need to make sure you communicate your interest with your district person. Make sure that you let them know that you want to continue in the public school McKay option.
Okay, second is how hard is it to switch options? In other words, go from public to private.
Well, if you have been in public school, you still have your IEP, you're old enough, right, then you're going to meet those requirements. So you just need to apply on the website and then go into the private way.
So I can reapply for 15, 16.
If you've already applied, no, that application is good for either option. If you apply through our website, it goes for either one. It's not a separate
They
application.
said it was two different ones.
They may have a district application that's different, but if you go through our website and apply, it's good for both. Okay?
They didn't understand the time.
That doesn't surprise me.
Okay.
We get calls from districts on a regular basis
No, it was
about the public.
actually the state.
The state? Well,
McKay.
I'm sorry about that. There was something else I was going to say about that. Oh, just to give you an example, there's about, you saw that stat earlier that had, 10,000 people that actually use McKay every year. About 5% use the public option. So
That's
200 out of the 10,000 are using the McKay public, and the rest of them are doing the private.
Well, I want to tell you about a horror story. that
Okay.
happened to me when I was trying to go to a private school in Polk County. I got an awful person on the call from the private school, and she basically told me that, I told my son had ADHD and had some issues with doing work, not a bad behavior problem, but he had some issues with motivation. She basically told me, well, this is not the school for you because parents are paying $10,000 a year and they don't want a kid in this classroom with problems.
Yep.
Why is she?
She was having a bad day, wasn't she?
But
Yeah.
no, I heard she tells that to a lot of families, or she did.
She might. Yeah. That's the thing about private schools is they're private, right? They can choose who they want. We don't tell them who they have to have. And just because they advertise that, yes, we take students that with these disabilities, doesn't mean they actually have to educate the students with those disabilities. So that's a common frustration.
That's just wrong.
That's right. That's right. Yes, ma'am.
What if our our school did not notify us April 1st. We're new to our school district. We just completed our first year.
Okay.
I only knew anything about McKay because of an outside assistance that we're getting from the University of Florida, who
Okay.
said to apply.
Right.
Our school district told me not even when I first entered the school district did
Yeah.
I ever hear about this.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, I don't know anything about it. I don't know I mean, do they get held responsible for it? Nothing.
Not really.
We're leaving county, and that's how we found out was everything went
Oh.
through.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I got a letter that said my son's eligible. And I'm, what? So that's why I'm here. I don't know what that means.
Right, yeah. Well, the letters that the district sends out would be, you might be eligible, check into this and see.
Oh, because he was with Early Learning Coalition, Early Steps.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the public school system for a year, through Early Steps as a 3-year-old.
Okay, good.
So he won't be eligible until he's 5. But I
You gotta
don't
turn
know
5
what that
first,
means. Right.
right.
But I don't know what that means. That means that he's eligible to go to a private school if we found one in our district.
Yes. Mhm.
But I'm happy with the public schools, so I
Right,
guess
right.
that means I can just
Yes.
stay.
Yes, if you're happy with your public.
Okay. That's what I'm saying.
You're welcome to stay.
I-
And a lot of people do. I mean, you see
guess,
that.
yes, I'm very pleased. So.
All right. Private McKay option, we kind of discussed this already. Funding level, I mentioned that earlier. Payment information. Let's talk about payments for a minute. So yes, go
Can I
ahead.
jump in with just a quick question? When you're talking about the notification to the public school that they're no longer going to be enrolled in public school and they switch to private school.
Yes.
How does a parent go about that? What would you advise them, since obviously parents are having issues with their districts and communication?
Well, that starts with the school.
Okay.
Whatever public school their child is in, that's who they would start with and say, I needed to withdraw my child from public school. Yes. All right, so for example, let's say that your child was approved for $10,000 for the year. And the tuition and fees and everything that the private school would charge you would be $12,000. Well, you would only be eligible for the $10,000, right? We're not going to give you whatever the school puts in because there's some expensive schools out there and some expensive services. But it also works the other way. If you're approved for $10,000 and the school only requests $8,000, well, that's all you get is the $8,000. So as a parent, you have access to see what fees are being charged for your child, how much is going to be used for your child. So you want to make sure at least once or twice a year you check on that and make sure that you're getting as much funding as you can. Because we get, hello, come on in, have a seat. We get unfortunate calls at the end of every school year. I just found out I have $2,000 left. Can I get it? No, it's too late. Right? It's too late then.
Can you access that 2,000 for services?
Not if it's not requested by the school up front. Yes, ma'am.
If the school requests the money, and you say you have the $2,000 left over, at the end of the school year, say they missed some therapies or something that were filled out, and you use it over the summer, can I go to occupational therapy over the summer with that money?
Through the school?
Through the school?
Yes.
Okay.
So the amount
I don't want to say too much about that.
Sorry.
So the amount
I can tell.
increase every year. When you're approved, you start studying every year the amount.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
A lot of times it does. Here 5 years ago, the economy wasn't so great. The amounts went down because the education budget went down.
Okay.
The last 2 years, it's gone up.
Okay.
2 years ago, it went up a lot. $1,000. So it just varies.
Okay.
Somebody else had a question?
You had mentioned that it goes down over time.
Yes.
How is that?
There are
Most
three.
schools go between the cost of everything goes up.
Yes, definitely.
So how do you?
I don't know why they do it that way. I don't know. I don't know why it's that way.
Do you withdraw your child and then reapply again every year?
That wouldn't. That doesn't affect it. No. There are 3 grade categories: kindergarten through 3rd grade, 4th through 8th, and 9th through 12th. When you move from one grade category to the next, the funding is reduced. So if you go from 1st to 2nd grade, it's not going to affect you. If you move from 3rd to 4th grade, you're going to lose a couple $100. Yes, ma'am.
Are the payments made directly to the school that the child is attending?
Good question. Yes, ma'am. We mail the checks directly to the school in the parent's name. So the parent is supposed to go to the school and sign the check. We do require, it's called a parental affidavit, that we get a copy of your signature. And so we don't check all of them, but we check thousands of them every payment period to make sure that the correct signature matches who actually signed the check. Because just because it's a private school doesn't mean it's a great school and an honest school. All right, so we have to check on these things. And sometimes, it's something as innocent as the parent got married and didn't notify us. So it has a different last name. And we can work through that. That's not a problem. Yes?
I'm sorry, I have tons of questions.
That is fine.
What if you disagree how they're using the funds? Because I'll just share an example. My son, they have a resource teacher
Okay.
who is also a full-time 6th grade teacher
Okay.
at the school that doesn't really do a whole lot except sit in on my parent-teacher conferences and say, hey, okay, things are going good. And I pay her $2,000 a year. That's a problem for me.
Yeah, sure. That's what you have to work that out with the school, though.
But that's totally up to the school. Like, I have to work that out with the school. The state can't.
Yes.
I can't do it. Okay.
Not unless they are fraudulently billing you.
Okay.
Then we can get involved.
Okay.
But generally, you have to work that out with the school. All right. Now, let's say you started the school year. Things are going good. 2 months later, something happens and you don't want to go to that school anymore. That's okay. You can transfer to another private school. Still get McKay funding. You don't have to requalify or anything. You just transfer. But there are 4 payment periods throughout the year. Whichever school your child attended 10 days first is the one that would get that quarter's payment. We don't prorate the funds. It's either all or nothing for that quarter's payment. Now, some schools, and this happens more than you probably think it would, some schools actually share the funds. They say, oh, he was only here 2 weeks. Here, you can have some of the funding. They'll send that to the new school. But that's up to them. They don't have to. As long as the child is there at least 10 days, then they can get the whole funding. All right, what's next? Slide number 21. We're 2/3 of the way through. 4 times a year, we talked about that. And then the name of the parent, delivered to the school. Parent goes to school, signs over the check. Y'all are prescient. Getting ahead of me here. All right, here's the deadline dates that we talked about. The first one, July 3rd. As long as you file by then you met all the deadlines and you can get 100%. Let's say you start out the year in public school and it's just not working out. So come, holiday break, you're like, we got to do something different. We got to change. We got to get to the private school. You can do that as long as you file your intent by December 3rd and get enrolled by January 2nd, then you can still receive half the funding. But you have to keep those deadlines in mind. This chart's available on the website. It's also in the pamphlet that we mail to you if you file the intent. So it's in several places. Hopefully all the schools know these dates as well. Most of them do. Transferring, we just talked about that. Okay. Let's talk about some things that affect scholarship. McKay students can complete up to 2 FLVS courses per school year. The school year is considered July 1st through June 3rd. They can complete up to 2 courses without losing eligibility for the McKay, but it reduces the amount of their funding. This is something new that the legislature enacted 2 years ago, and we've had 2 years of this already. And I don't know if they're going to get rid of it or if it's here forever. But it's the current situation, so that's what we deal with. When I say 2 courses, I mean usually Algebra 1 would be considered 2 segments. That's 1 course. You can complete up to 4 segments, 2 courses. It's all in the terminology, but a segment is basically the same thing as a semester. A lot of parents, as I alluded to earlier, will have their child do driver's ed over the summer through Florida Virtual School, and that's fine. It does reduce the scholarship a few $100s. Yes, ma'am.
Now, is that Florida Virtual School full-time or part-time?
No,
There's
it's,
a difference.
yeah, no, it's the full-time version. Well, it's the, and there are so many parts to Florida Virtual School.
Yes, I know.
You're just taking the one course,
So it's really it's what they call the part-time program.
most likely.
Because
I
other
think
one
the
you
only way
pay-
for the full-time is that's all you're doing and you're not doing anything else.
'cause
I'm
the-
not positive on that. You would have to contact Florida Virtual School and ask them that
Yeah, because
question.
where it's Florida Virtual School full-time, that is considered a public school.
Yes, yes, and it's,
Completely.
yes,
But Florida Virtual is not, and they classify themselves as a homestead.
yep, there are several levels to Florida Virtual School. And I'm not sure which one the driver's ed is in. But yeah, you'd have-
It's the part-time,
you would
it's
have
the
to ask them.
homeschool program. Your child has to be enrolled as homeschool. I'm all familiar with that.
Okay.
No holding on that.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, let me get some clarification on that.
Okay.
If my kid was going to a public school, and he was using McKay for a public school, because he's out of district, or out of area, or whatever they call it. If the requirements now for high school is they have to do a half a credit online.
Right.
As a graduation requirement.
Yes.
And then if he doesn't pass some of those, required subjects throughout a year, I think he can make it up in summer school, but if he doesn't make it up in summer school, then he has to do, according to my district, he has to do Florida Virtual School to make up the credit.
Okay.
How does that affect, or does it really matter because he's in public school?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
I have a question about that.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there any option, like she was mentioning, that I can apply for the scholarship and then my son can still attend a public school?
Yes, that's one of the two options.
And
You can apply for McKay.
uh-huh.
If you're interested in the private school option, then you go to the private school and try.
Right, but if
If you want to try to get into a different public
a
school
different one.
than the one you're zoned for,
Okay.
you would contact your local district, and they would help you with that.
Okay.
Our office doesn't work with that part of it.
So it has to be through the district,
Yes, ma'am.
and then it has to be a different school from the one that is currently.
Yes,
attending.
that's the only, yeah, that would be the purpose for McKay. Otherwise, you're staying in your regular
Right,
school. and-
right, okay.
Yeah.
Most school districts are not letting you, it used to be in the old days where your parent could request a school for a certain reason with a kid on an IEP. But now they're basically saying that if he doesn't McKay, then chances are he won't get in, and then there's even greater chances that he won't get in even with McKay. But the chances are worse without McKay.
Without McKay, yeah.
But, and then public school will be receiving that funding from the McKay Scholarship?
Well, they're already receiving the funding unless you're sending your child to private school. It's not additional funding that they're receiving.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, what else we got? Parent responsibilities, there are a lot of them. And we do have a hotline that parents can call. We answered 48,000 questions last year, something like that. You know, it's hundreds a day that we're dealing with. We also have an email address that you saw earlier. So we're available. We may not be available live all of the time, but leave a message. I talk to parents. I called your office 12 times and didn't get a person once. Did you leave a message? No. I'm sorry, I can't help you if you don't leave me a message. So, yeah. But anyway, there's a lot of information. And sometimes the district doesn't give you all of it. Sometimes the private school doesn't know all of it. So there's a lot of responsibility on the parents. Not only to see what the funding is, make sure the funding is being used properly, make sure you're signing the checks, you know, when they come, and those kinds of things. These are some things that the school has to do, and they give us what's called a school fee schedule, and then when they want to enroll your child, they will choose the items from that fee schedule that fits their students, kind of like a menu, right? So they've got the school menu, and then they're choosing, oh, these 6 things apply to this child, and that becomes the student fee schedule. And so as a parent, you have access to see that. So that's one thing you should look at. The parent does not do the choosing of the private school on the website, right? The school does that. The school, after you've applied and become eligible, the school has access to that list. And so they would register and then they would enroll your child. 3 times a year, they verify that your child is actually attending and how much the child is attending. They tell us that information. And then each year they're supposed to give, some kind of written report of your child's progress, whether it's a report card, a letter. I think that varies quite a bit by school and by student. Yes?
Can you touch base, just because we're going to move forward and be in school, that the student attendance is not governed by the private school, that you all have requirements that the private school, in order to get funding, that those children have to be in school enrolled in so many hours?
Yes.
Just so that they know it's not the private school sometimes saying, hey, your kid's not, we can't,
Yeah.
There is still, even though it's a private school,
Yeah.
attendance requirements, even though it's not a public
It's the same attendance requirements just as if you were going to public school. The private school has to provide at least 170 days. They have to be open at least 170 days. Your child doesn't have to go 170 days. Obviously, they're going to be out sick or parents are going on vacation or whatever and they can't go. But the private school can say, yes, that absence is excused. That's okay. And there is a standard regarding the number of hours that the child should attend as well. Okay, what else? Getting toward the end. Private school. Okay, some things about private schools. They have to apply every year to continue their participation in McKay. They have to provide us, yes, the fire department said this place is safe. The health department said this place is safe. They have to submit financial documents if they're a new school. So there's several things that they have to do. But some things that they are not required to do. They're not required to have accredited teachers. They're not required to provide the services from the 504 IEP. So there's some things you have to keep in mind if you're taking your child out of public school and is receiving services. That's another thing that the parent is responsible for, is making sure that that school is going to be able to provide the services that your child needs. That's a lot of responsibility, I think. All right? This is what the district is supposed to do. They determine whether or not children are eligible. Our office's information is on their website somewhere. And this reevaluation, every 3 years at least, the district is supposed to offer a reevaluation of your child. That does not mean that if your child's needs have changed, that it will affect the funding or it will affect their eligibility. It doesn't affect that at all. It only means that if you want to, you can have the district reevaluate your child to see if you want to see how the private school is doing. If you want to see, hey, maybe something else has cropped up that we didn't realize, they can do that for you. But it doesn't affect eligibility and it does not affect funding. And it's not required, of course, it's your option. All right, what do we do besides come to conferences? You follow the intent, you apply through our website. We approve the private schools to participate in the program. We dish out payments, yay. And we provide information and helpful information. Verify private school eligibility. That does not mean that we accredit schools. It does not mean that we certify them as a high quality school or anything. There are accrediting agencies that do that. And so if you're interested in a school's credentials, you would contact that agency. We can't help you with that. The only thing we do is the schools register with us. They're supposed to register with us. Hello. And verify that they are a private school and that kind of stuff. And they give us demographic information, how many students, how many teachers, what grades, that kind of stuff. And then we can approve them to participate in the programs. But that does not mean accreditation. Thank you. Have a good day. Somebody had a question.
I was just wondering what you guys verify for eligibility.
Like I was talking about earlier, we verify that it's a health safety issue. We look at their Department of Health inspection, we look at their fire inspection, their financial information if they're a new school.
Does somebody go visit the school and see, or is it all just by paper?
Mostly by paper. We do visit, unfortunately, very few schools each year. With 1,700 schools, we can't visit them, right? We normally visit maybe 16, 18 schools a year. Not very many. And most of those we visit because they've had a problem. If you've had a problem with us, you've had a complaint, you've moved and we're not sure if you're where you say you are, we'll come visit you. But there's just not the budget for us to go out, unfortunately. I'm not sure that that information is available. If you submitted a public records request, I'm sure you could get it, but I think that's probably the only way. There's no list that we provide, unless the school tells you, hey, they came out.
Is that the same if, like, if you wanted to know about any other components that have been made?
Yep, these are, you gotta remember, these are private schools, not public. There's very little control that the,
Right.
very little control that the DOE has over private schools.
But at the same time, they're receiving state funds.
Yes, they are.
And
Some
I
people don't like
think
that.
That would open the door to a little bit more
Scrutiny.
Yeah,
Yep.
guidance. It
Right.
just seems, I don't know, seems like there's a
That's
lot
what
of,
happened with the legislature.
let's just give money.
Exactly.
Definitely.
At least grade schools that they do.
Yep, there are a lot of people that want more control.
That would cost more money.
And like this lady said, contact your state legislature. That's the way to get it, if that's what you want. There's that constant tension between how much control,
But if you
how
want that
much
kind of
freedom.
control, you should just go to a public school. If you're looking for all that control, then go to a public school. If you don't want that control, that's the point of the private school option. That's why people choose to go to private school, because they don't want all the control on their private school.
But then, on the flip side, you shouldn't complain when it's not made public, and then.
I'm not one to
No, I'm
complain.
just saying,
Yeah.
in general, yeah. But,
If
because
you're
I
not sure
love my
about the
son's
school,
public school.
go and
yeah.
do a walkthrough. You can see a lot through
You
school by
can,
walking
totally.
through, talking to students, talking to teachers.
Yeah, ask the students, are you having fun?
Yeah.
That's so true.
There is an
Yeah.
agency that's in the state of Florida in every county. You can call the Department of Children and Families.
Yeah.
If there has been a complaint made against a private school, trust me, they will be the ones and they can record it and they can divulge to you that there has been a complaint. This state has a wonderful Department of Children and Families because they have let things go in the past, that we actually do have one of the states that takes every complaint extremely seriously. Trust me, I'm a private school owner. And so if there's ever a complaint, they will. It doesn't matter. Oh, a child, was coughing and anything like that. And you can, and that is public record. So the problem is, keep this in mind, it's school of choice. So as a parent, we're giving that option to go ahead and choose. And my son is autistic and goes to public school, and I go every 3 months fighting with the IEPs group. I'm feeling you as a parent. But you have that choice now in the state of Florida. Along with that choice is just like he has stated, comes a lot of responsibility. That responsibility falls back on you. At the same time, giving that private school without being so regulated by the Florida Department of Education, the private school doesn't have to make your child accountable. Standardized testing that we use, your child doesn't have to be held to that standard. Your child may be in a 3rd grade level reading, but a 1st grade level writing. That private school then has the opportunity to grow with that child rather than with that class because you have one instructor with 32 kids.
Oh, I get it, but I'm just saying, when you have federal funds, I'm an accountant and I'm an education major. I have dual masters and things, so I get both sides. I see just an unregulated money aspect that just the state is not controlling. That's what I see.
Yep.
The whole reason I would send my kids to a private school, I would fought for 2 kids on IEPs, is for the exact reason. But I'm looking at it from the money standpoint, that just seems a little
Yep.
sketchy to
Yep.
schools that aren't just regulated. There's
Yep.
so many bad private schools out there, just as many bad public schools. I'm from 2 different states,
Yeah.
and I get that, but I'm looking more at the money side of it. So.
Okay.
For Florida or?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right, that's pretty much it. There's some contact information. I have some business cards up here if anybody wants it. I can stay a few minutes and answer questions. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.